All right, welcome back, everybody. Chapter 122 of Attack on Titan is upon us. What an amazing chapter that was. I am going to connect the dots on a bunch of things that I found interesting within this chapter. I'm going to connect them back to things that happened previously in the series and to some other stories, you probably tell by the title, The Matrix, and the Genesis story, the Garden of Eden. It's a lot of information, so let's get to it. First off, the chapter seemed very short. I think this was due to very little dialogue, left more emphasis on detail of the artwork, and a lot of things for us to just simply interpret by seeing the images. And with the title alone, From You 2,000 Years Ago, this is obviously a throwback or a reference to the first chapter that started it all, To You 2,000 Years From Now. This chapter is more like Eren speaking back to Ymir, and To You 2,000 Years From Now, that's Ymir speaking to Eren in the future. So obviously, this is a chapter where they finally touch, and they finally meet, and it pretty much brings everything together. One of the quotes says here in the beginning of the chapter, "Underneath this world full of pain and suffering exists another world which light cannot reach." I think that pertains to either the Titan realm that Ymir already inhabits, or will inhabit, kind of foreshadowing, or this could be the lake or the little body of water that lies under the giant tree that Ymir falls into later on in the chapter. Another quote, "You are free." Obviously, this is very familiar to many of us because it's the same as the final panel that Isayama revealed. Perhaps this is Eren talking to his child, but it could, we don't really know for sure. So, "You are free." This is what King Fritz says to Ymir. The irony here is that Ymir continues to be his slave after she goes and gets the Titan powers. So she is freed from the structure of society and into the anarchy of the wild, where she is chased and hunted by dogs and humans. She is free to run into the darkness alone. Not what we think of when we hear freedom. But is that better than being a slave? Who knows? So Ymir is running, and she stumbles across a giant tree, which has an opening leading to some kind of pool of water, which Ymir falls into, where this weird floating central nervous system takes hold of her and turns her into the first Titan. Obviously, we have a lot of questions. Is it even water that she fell into? It could be just a pool of spinal fluid. That would be very interesting. What is the origin of this organism? How long has it been there? Where did it come from? Etc. Off the top of my head, big Yggdrasil vibes here. From Norse mythology. I know a lot of people have talked about the Norse influence on Isayama's writing. It's all there. For example, Ymir, that's an obvious one. So she enters and falls to the bottom where this spine, central nervous system looking organism is there. I think that is representative of a snake, and maybe her falling is into the water. That's like her descent into the underworld, maybe. Okay, so the snake reference or comparison, a snake is basically just a spine with a brain, if you think about it, and it looks just like, if you just take our own central nervous system, it looks like a snake. Obviously, in the Norse mythology, Yggdrasil is the world ash, so the roots go down to the underworld, and then obviously the trees there. Around it is the world, but there's a snake that coils around it. So there's the snake symbology there. The snake is coiled around. It's eating its tail, like the Ouroboros. So here we establish the connection between human snake and tree, but more specifically woman snake and a tree. Notice how all the previous depictions of the Titan history prior to this chapter were different from what we actually see in Ymir's memories. Marley says it was the devil. Kruger says it was the source of all organic matter. I argued in another video that these are actually just two versions of the same thing. But, okay, so in the first page of this chapter, we see Frida telling Historia to be like Ymir. She's reading from the storybook, which, however, she never really recalls or tells her anything about the weird, menacing-looking figure that's standing opposite of the little girl. And because in the storybook, it doesn't have horns. It doesn't really look like a devil. It's just a weird-looking figure with a hood and a lamp. It looks a lot like the scouts when they were going through the forest in the darkness, either looking for Titans or when they were going back to Shiganshina. I thought that was very interesting. So we have the Marley propaganda, which tells us it's a devil, and the Marleyans called all the Eldians devils. So there's a lot of devil symbology. So we know that the origin of Ymir's Titan comes from the snake, which was thought to be a devil. Now you have this snake devil connection, so you could say there's a snake, devil, woman, tree. These are all subjects of the Garden of Eden story in Genesis. All the archetypes are there. It's a bit more complex because Ymir, perhaps inadvertently, was saved by this organism which took over her body against her will, but it did save her. The other thing is that, okay, you have the exile, right? Adam and Eve are kicked out of the Garden of Eden. This could be similar to, okay, Ymir gets kicked out first. Ymir gets kicked out of the tribe of Eldia, and she's out in the world, and then she finds the tree and then the snake. So it's kind of in reverse. And now think about this. All of that precedes Ymir creating the three walls, her own Garden of Eden, also known as paradise or a paradise. So that's where the Eldians lived in peace for hundreds of years before the snake entered in the form of the Colossus Titan and kicked in the wall and started all this shit. That's another throwback to the chapter 1. Alright, Ymir's Titan is pretty cool looking. It turns out she did actually cultivate the land and build the bridges, and her payment was to bear, unfortunately, the children of King Fritz. Speaking of King Fritz, the crown that he has on his head has, the 9-pointed star. They look like little pot leaves, if you ask me. But 9 is a very important number, obviously, in this series. 9 is a multiple of 3. 3 is a, obviously a very important number for many reasons. You have the rule of 3. You have the Trinity. Things happen in threes. You have Eren, Armin, and Mikasa, Sasha, Connie, Jean, Reiner, Bertolt, Annie. You have the 3 walls, named after Ymir's 3 daughters. Anyway, going back to 9. You have the 9 Titans. You have the 9 worlds of Yggdrasil. And, as many of you probably have already done, if you go back and check chapter 1, the tree that Eren sleeps under has 9 visible branches. So that's very interesting. How long has Isayama known the course of this story? Since we're talking about chapter 1 here, one thing that I noticed is our introduction to Eren is quite similar to how we are introduced to Neo in The Matrix. Both characters are asleep. Eren awakens to Mikasa saying, "Eren, wake up." And Neo wakes up to his monitor showing, "Wake up, Neo." So, one thing that drives me just nuts, and I really don't know, is determinism versus free will. Do we have free will, or is all of it just an illusion? In The Matrix, the monitor cuts off and types, "Wake up, Neo," followed by him waking up immediately. This is a movie with heavy symbolism and hidden meanings and everything. As with almost every story, everything happens for a reason. I think this implies determinism or some kind of pre-written script. Maybe it's because Neo is it's shown that Neo is in the Matrix. In an earlier video, I mentioned that Eldians, and specifically the Titan Shifters, don't necessarily have free will, but are vessels for the Titans and their ideologies, beliefs, and the motives that they hold. Think of it, I'm getting this secondhand from Dr. Jordan Peterson, but I think Carl Jung has this idea of ideas having people, or think of it as ideas having people instead of people having ideas. And the ideas and belief systems propagate themselves through propaganda, memes, rhetoric, and whatever, via the people who believe them. Now, the way that applies to Titans is, I'll give you an example that I mentioned previously, the Jaw Titan, right? All the Jaw Titan shifters died sacrificing themselves to save Reiner. Is that because that martyr archetype was inherent within the Jaw Titan spirit, the Jaw Titan power, or was that coincidentally just the personality type of everybody who inherited the Jaw Titan? Very strange. Anyway, my issue with all this is if everything is predetermined, free will is an illusion, and we're not responsible for our actions because we have no choice but to do them anyway. Who or what is that force that determines everything? Does that controller have free will, or is it deterministic in itself? Is it God? From what certain religions tell us, God is what gives us our free will, and God can't interfere with our free will, and neither can the devil. However, it's the devil that tries to trick us and tempt us and deceive us into doing things against our better judgment or our character, or just to get us to do his bidding. I talked about it briefly in my very first video. Anyway, maybe free will doesn't come from God at all. I really don't know. It's all very strange. Anyway, please let me know what you guys think about that, how it pertains to Attack on Titan, what you think. Personally, I think I'm leaning more towards the deterministic side, as far as the Titans go. I'll get into that in another video too, about the cycles of the ages and how maybe things are doomed to repeat. Anyway, Eren has seen enough at this point. He finally gets through to Ymir because that's the boy. We have faith in Eren. Eren's the shit, all right? He tells her that she doesn't have to be a slave to the royal family anymore. Now, Zeke, hilariously enough, is the one who is afraid now when it's somebody else saying that it's time for the world to end. I know Kruger said it. He said anyone can be a god or a devil. But here we see Zeke and Eren's true characters. There's no moral relativism, if you ask me. There's good and there's evil. Zeke wants Ymir to stay a slave, while Eren wants to free her. Zeke wants to control people, while Eren wants people to have control over themselves. Do as I ordered you to. I am a descendant of the royal family. Zeke is desperately crying to Ymir, but it is too late. He can no longer control Ymir because Eren has unchained her mind from the royal rule. In my first video, I said that Zeke is representative of Satan in a way based on his ideology by comparing him to Mephistopheles from Goethe's play Faust. I wouldn't say it's accurate to say that Eren is the Jesus figure or the Jesus equivalent based on everything he's done, but the panel where the three are in the same shot, I can't help but think of Jesus saying, "Get behind me, Satan." So it's the scene where Eren is hugging Ymir, except he has no thumbs. He's like this, and then Zeke is kind of running like that. Get behind me, Satan. It's a great shot. Maybe the quote doesn't apply. Maybe it's out of context, but it did come to mind, right? Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me and to the rumbling that's about to happen in a couple minutes. Or maybe you can say that Eren is a Jesus figure insofar as he's a figure to be emulated by perhaps being a proponent of freedom and free will. Maybe you could say that his head being blown off is a death and rebirth, albeit very rapidly. His head being blown off and connecting back to his body through that spine. And think about his overall mission. It's to save Mikasa, Armin, and the others. So he is a savior in that regard. Then again, of course, he killed hundreds of innocent people in Marley to achieve his goal. The end justified the means to him. As the quote says, great men are almost always bad men. So Eren lets Ymir make the choice to stay a slave in the Titan realm or to end it. That's the red or blue pill. And at last, we return to the present, where, in a fantastic mind-bending chain of events, a giant fucking spine connects Eren's head back to his body, very serpent-like, I might add, and the walls start to crumble, to everyone's shock, of course. Eren looks like he's about to become the damn god Titan, with all the colossal Titans surrounding him in an absolutely beautiful shot, as Gabby is looking... To her, all of this happened instantly, if you think about it, because... first of all, we have the title of one of the previous chapters titled Instant, because, Eren and Zeke were in the land outside of time. So, Eren becomes this damn god Titan, and I imagine he's going to be as tall as the original Ymir. So, a couple chapters ago, we had no idea how Isayama was going to tie all this together, but bravo. So, that's pretty much all I have to explain for this video. I know it was a hell of a lot of information, but... just like, comment, subscribe. tell me in the comments what you think of the video, how these videos are coming along, if you like them or not. So, next video, I'm going to talk about the cycles of history, apocalypse myths, and Pink Floyd. I have a lot of fun doing these and getting these crazy ideas out there to you guys. So, thank you for watching again.